Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Navya Sharma and today in this video I'm going to talk about APIs. So this video is going to be a part of my playlist named Tech Talks. So just a brief information about my playlist called Tech Talks. So in this playlist, I make videos in which I talk about some of the most common and important topics of computer science, software engineering, and important tech-related keywords and concepts, right? So how is this important to you? So firstly, this playlist is really going to be important for all of those who are learning, who like to learn and are enrolled in courses and degrees of computer science and information technology. So how is this playlist good for you? So this playlist is going to make you aware about some of the concepts that I'm going to discuss that are really very important. Even if you worked in any of the internships or even in many of the college courses also you'll come across these terms, but you may overlook them and not focus them and not see them as that important. So I would like to discuss them so that you get a better idea of them, because they are going to be very important as soon as you land in your dream job and you start working, or even if you do some internships and work on projects, then knowing them is a great way for you, right? So let's start the video. So now I would like to talk about what actually an API is. So coming to the full form first. So API means application programming interface. So let's start by talking about the full form of API, right? So by taking one word each time. So by application, what do we mean is application, you all must be knowing that applications are basically some kind of softwares or programs, apps that you're actually using in day-to-day life. So those are applications. And if we come to the next term, that is programming, right? So programming basically means that uh, these APIs are something that are actually programmed by the developers. So the program words comes from there, that these APIs can help you to communicate between two of the applications, and the APIs are programmed to do so, and they are told in the programming that how do you have to communicate, how to respond to the request and so on. So I'll talk about it more in the later video. So then we come to the third word, that is interface. So by interface, the word that comes into your mind is basically that you suppose say that you go to Instagram and you want to post a story, right? So you go on posting a story and you just do it and it happens, right? But you don't know actually that how things are happening in the back end side of that. You don't get to see that how did your story get posted and how are your friends able to see them. So this is kind of an interface. It is something which we can call as abstraction. So you are using it, but you don't know what is actually behind it, right? So this is what application programming interface means. So this was kind of tech definition type of stuff. So the main thing that API is basically a means or a way of communicating between two of the applications. Suppose say this is my application one and this is my application two. So if they are, loosely coupled and they are separated, maybe suppose there are two different services and or two different applications, and if they want to talk each other or utilize each other's resources, so this pathway between them is is bridged by the use of API. So like this application can say that, hey API, make me talk to this application. So with this, they can talk to each other and use each other's data and resources and do whatever it is required to do, right? So not only it was just an example. Suppose if even if it's a server and it's a client, that suppose you client is basically going to be the person who is going to use the, suppose say, any mobile app, right, or any website. So you're a client on that website, and this is a server. So the client will put some kind of a request to the server, right? So suppose I say I'm a client and I want to fetch my profile. So I'm just clicking on the button which is going to show my profile. But in the back end, you're sending an API request. We're using an API which is going to send a request which you are not able to see. So that request actually goes to the server and it communicates. So API helps you to communicate between two independent services, or maybe the client side and the server side. So you are able to talk and you are able to convey the data to each other, right? So uh, I'd like to put up an analogy where I would be talking about a restaurant example, that how actually an API is defined in the real world. So I'll share my screen and talk about the example. So yeah, so here goes the example. So you can see the first picture over here, right? The one I'm circling. So it's an example in which you can see you have, imagine you have a restaurant over here in the first picture, and you must have gone to the restaurant, and suppose you are a customer and you call a waiter to order something which you like, right? So you call a waiter and give him the order. So your order is noted by the waiter, and then it goes to the kitchen, and then he is going to deliver your order to the kitchen, and then the processing will happen in the kitchen. They'll make your food, and then the waiter will go back to the kitchen, and when your food is ready, he'll take the food for you and bring you to the table, right? So you are on your table still. You didn't get up and go to the kitchen to bring your own food, right? So you had an intermediate person called waiter, which was always there in like whatever was happening, right? From taking your order to giving it to the kitchen, and then when the food was ready, he brought you back to the table. So waiter over here is like an analogy to API. So this is what actually API does. So you are a client over here, and you suppose you can say the kitchen is a server. So you being a client want to talk to the server. So it's not right to actually go directly to the server and say, server, please give me the response. So it's not the right way, and even there are many security concepts, security threats and breaches involved in this case. So it's not a right way to do so, right? So for this is the main cause why something like APIs have been made, so that two different services or two different sides of programming can talk to each other, right? So you don't actually have to know that what are those services made, like in which programming language have you coded both of the services. So it's like if you have the API of calling, of using that particular service, then you can call it. You don't need to know what actually is the code in that service in which you are making a call, right? So this was an analogy. So I hope that made you understand how waiter acted as an API here. So now let's come to the go to the technical way of how seeing things, how API works, right? So you open a web browser and you open a web app. So it can be anything, a mobile app, web app, desktop app, or any interface, right? So you open a website, suppose. So there, as I said, that you want to see a profile. So you just click on a button that view profile, but behind that button, on your client side, there is a code that is actually calling that API, right? Actually calling that API that, hey, I want to communicate to the web server over here so that I can fetch the user's profile and give and show him in his profile, right? So this is how you're sending a request with the API, and that request when is taken by the API to the web server. So that web server is going to process the request and say that this user, this is the user ID of that person, and he wants this kind of profile data, right? So it is the server is going to fetch from the database, and then in the form of a response, So this web server, when it has the data of the user, it is going to talk to the API again, and it will tell the API that, hey API, take this data and give it to the user in the form of a response. So this API will take the data back and show it to you on your screen, that your profile details. So these things happen very quickly. Like this is actually how the actual design should be, because there should be not much user waiting on the client side, right? So these things happen very quickly. We don't even get to notice that what actually the processing has happened, how the API took the data, took your request and like brought you the response, right? So you are able to do all of this with the help of an API. So think about it whenever you go, suppose if you're booking tickets from Make My Trip, right? So you go to Make My Trip. So think about it that you click on search flights for a particular day. So what happens in the background is that Make My Trip is a kind of one service that you're communicating to, right? So that Make My Trip has its own server. When it receives a request through the API, so then it is going to talk to another APIs, right? To fetch the details of different flights, right? Suppose there is Air India, which has its own flight. There is Indigo, which has its own flight. So Air India and Indigo will be having their APIs to call to get the flights that they offer, right? So Air India and Indigo have their own APIs. So they'll make it available to Make My Trip to call so that they can get all the flights data from both of them, from Air India and Indigo, right? So that's what I said, that Make My Service has its own web server. So with the help of API, it gets the data of Indigo and Air India, suppose, right? So when it gets it, and then in the client side, you had also made a request through with the help of an API to the Make My Trip server. So basically, you can see that there are two phases of API calls that are going in an ordered way, right? So then when it gets data from different like airline sites like Air India and Indigos, and then Make My Trip is going to combine them all and then going to send you back that list of flights available on that particular day in the form of a response. So this is what actually happens. So try to think whenever you're using any website or an app, that what actually makes it work and how is there any API involved in it or not, right? So this was like a brief info about what an API is. So you can try relating it with your real life examples. So try thinking about it, and it's good that you know about what an API is, because you may be reading this API term in various courses of yours, and maybe if you're doing any internship, they'll tell you to make an API, or they'll talk to you where you'll be hearing some concepts about API. So it's good to know what an API actually is. So these APIs are of different types, right? So if we talk about APIs, there can be different types of APIs. Like some of the APIs are publicly available, that are open to all of the consumers to consume, right? And some of the APIs are private. So by private I mean that they're not open to everyone to consume. So they'll have some kind of a restricted access or some API keys that will be made available to only some persons that they want to, that the API developer wants them to access, right? So they're not available to everyone. And the third type is basically, and the third type is called the internal APIs. So by internal APIs, you mean that within an organization, there may be services that are restricted to an organization. So if you're working there, so you can access those services using the API. So this was the third type. And there are, like, if from the developer point of view, you may in future want to work with API development, right? So like there are various protocols and architectures that you need to know, right? You are going to develop an API. So you need to choose that what architecture you want to follow. So there are certain protocols for each architecture. Like I mentioned some of them, like there are some of the architectures like SOAP APIs, the REST APIs, RPCs. So you can read about all of them. But to mention, most commonly used architecture is the REST architecture, and REST API is also a very common word that you must have heard. So REST APIs are famous because they are developer friendly. So the people who code to make those APIs, it's actually easy to understand how to code and how to understand the way it works, the way it communicates. So it's actually easy, and it also is stateless. So it's a good thing. So I think we can talk about REST APIs in a different video because it has a lot of concepts. So this was just a basic intro video for what an API actually is. So APIs are getting very popular these days. They are being used, as I told you, there are three types of APIs. So imagine they are being used internally in the organization also. They are publicly available also, and they are also being privately used. Like you get the API key for that service, and then you can use it. Right? So they are really getting very important these days. So it's good to know about what an API is if you see yourself in a software developer background. So I hope that this video gave you a good insight about what an actual API refers to. So I'll be making a different playlist in which I'll be talking about REST APIs in detail. So REST APIs is like a big topic to discuss, and it has a lot of concepts in it. So I think we can go with the playlist. And so I'll be mentioning like when I'll be creating the REST APIs playlist in future, I'll be mentioning the link in the description. So uh, till then, you guys can go and read about different type of APIs and different architectures. So thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, then please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.